the opening of the program, I gave you this SJ Senate Joint Resolution 19. It's sponsored by 46 Democrats, the lead sponsor, Harry Reid, and also Schumer. And here's what it says. Article 1, Section 1. To advance, it is so tiny, the font on this. I'm doing my best. The following article is proposed as an amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states. Now, let me stop you there. Notice the left never stops in their effort to destroy this society. They'll do it outside the Constitution. They'll try and do it within the Constitution. It really doesn't matter because the ends justifies the means. Notice when I talk about Article 5 and strict adherence to a constitutional process that's actually in the Constitution, supported by the framers and the ratifiers, it said that's illegitimate, which is, of course, absurd. Article Section 1, they call it. To advance democratic self-government and political equality, and to protect the integrity of government and the electoral process, Congress and the states may regulate and set reasonable limits on the raising and spending of money. 1, the amount of contributions to candidates for a nomination for election 2 or for election election 2 or for election 2, federal office, and 2, the amount of funds that may be spent in support of or by or in opposition to such candidate or candidates and others to influence elections. So here you would have Congress determining how much money you can spend to influence the political process directly through candidates. Congress, incumbent politicians, telling you and others how much they can spend and how much they can raise for individual candidates. I've always opposed this. And there's still some restrictions in the law in this regard. In fact, many. 2, the amount of funds that may be spent by or in support of or in opposition to such candidacy or candidates and others to influence elections. So these would be what we call PACs. They're not direct contributions to candidates, but they run ads on TV advocating for or against a particular candidate. Congress wants to control that. Section 2, Congress and the state shall have power to 1, the amount of contributions to candidates for a nomination or election to state office. So it repeats it for state offices. Now, if the First Amendment doesn't stand for free political speech, the maximum free speech when it comes to politicians and elections, then what's the point of it? Pornography? No, that was never the point of it. Well, we have a free press, that's enough? First of all, the framers didn't say that's enough. Second of all, we don't have a free press. We have a Democrat press, by and large. A government press, to be even more specific, when you listen to the radio and TV news and read the papers, such as they are. So this is a proposal by the Democrats on the First Amendment. The Second Amendment, as you know, they've proposed statute after statute, amendment after amendment, to curtail the right of law-abiding citizens to own guns. So speech, political speech, would be controlled by the government. The government would have even more control over your right to protect yourself and your family under the Second Amendment. What else are they up to? Bernie Sanders. You know, Bernie Sanders is a socialist. But I have to ask you, aren't most of the Democrats in the Senate socialists? Bernie Sanders calls for a wealth tax. A nation will not survive morally or economically when so few have so much while so many have so little. This idiot's trying to be Abraham Lincoln. We need a tax system which asks the billionaire class to pay its fair share of taxes and which reduces the obscene degree of wealth inequality in America. What we actually need is a smaller government and to leave people alone. I have to ask you a question. What is the difference if Bill Gates is worth $40-some billion? How does that affect me? It has no... Mr. Producer, does it affect you? Mr. Call Screener, if Bill Gates has $40 billion, can you please tell me how that affects you? It has no effect on you whatsoever. That means he's wildly successful at selling us something that we want. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking the most extreme example because they like Bill Gates. He's a big lib Democrat, big enviro nut. What does he do with his money? Does he hoard it all and stick it in a cigar box? No. He invests it. He puts it in banks. He puts it in real estate. He puts it in stocks. He puts it in bonds. He buys companies. He buys parts of companies. In other words, wealth creates wealth. Wealth creates opportunity. Wealth creates jobs. Government destroys all those things. How many more real-world examples of this do we need? With the masterminds throughout the world centralizing government, centralizing private property rights decisions. And this is what's meant by the Ninth Amendment, and this is what's meant by the Declaration of Independence when they talk about unalienable rights. And this is why they were going to meet in Annapolis before they wound up meeting in Philadelphia. That's why I've explained all this. Because they believe private property rights, that is your labor, intellectual and physical. That is the time you spend on earth working, investing, thinking, applying, producing. That is invaluable. Those are your personal human rights. And if a government has the power to tell you how much you can earn, how much you can keep, how much you can pass on to your children, you are not free. And government is tyrannical. And Bernie Sanders is tyrannical. Then we have here another example. Jack Lew, the Secretary of the Treasury. He's preparing an executive order for our imperial president. An executive order that will change our tax laws as applies to these handful of companies that move their headquarters for purposes of taxes and so forth overseas. So rather than cutting our corporate income tax and encouraging all these other foreign companies to move their headquarters to America, which is what Ronald Reagan did, we're going to do the opposite. This is going to be the old East Berlin. In essence, we're going to build a wall. Well, not to keep out illegal aliens, for God's sakes. No, the more the merrier. We're going to build a legal wall to make sure businesses can't leave. And if they can't cut their tax burden, they can't prosper like their competitors overseas. This is a problem.